Why do injuries happen and how do we stop them? Welcome back, Bulletproof Ballers, to the Bulletproof Baller YouTube channel. Today I'm literally going to be running through all things injuries. What are my theories behind why are injuries happening and what can we do to actually stop them? Can we do anything to stop them? First thing we have to cover in order to understand exactly why injuries are happening are the concept of demand versus ability, and we create this cool graph here to try and illustrate this point. And so we have two types of demand that are placed on the body. One is internal and one is external. And so external force, we can look at something like contact injuries. And so in football, we are a contact sport. And if someone 2-foots you through the knee and your ACL snaps, there's not too much you can do about it because you cannot train your body to the level of force which can actually handle that. I'm not sure if that's possible. Maybe we can reduce it in some kind of way by getting stronger muscles, getting stronger connective tissue. But that kind of force is something so insane that we can't do anything about it. And you can look at this like jumping off the Empire State Building as well. If you jumped off the Empire State Building, you're going to break your knees no matter what. You're probably going to die, right? Most likely going to die. And so, but if you jumped off something that's like 2 foot high, you're probably not going to die. And so there is levels of it as well, but external force is causing more of the contact injuries. That's what we call it. Then we have internal force and non-contact injuries, and this is what we're primarily going to be focused on today because this is primarily what we can actually do stuff about. And actually 50 to 80% of our injuries nowadays are non-contact. So about 2 out of 3 injuries aren't someone running into you and you get a cracked rib. They aren't you jumping off something and landing and having loads of force go through. It's not 2-footing someone. It's actually our own force exceeding our ability. And so this internal force is then produced by our muscles, our hip power, what we can personally produce onto ourselves. And so non-contact, especially like something like an ACL tear, like that's through the roof. It's an epidemic in some sense of the word. And so when we look at injuries, our bodies are usually put into compromised positions. And we either don't have the flexibility or the strength in that position in order to handle it. And that's where we have some kind of injury. So an injury happens whenever our demand exceeds our ability. And this can be gradual over time, like an overuse injury. And we'll talk about that again more in the future. But also one time, okay, if we put so much force into quad, for example, and that quad can't handle that force, is it going to tear? Then we have structural imbalance, we have overuse injuries. And so let's use football as an example. In football, we are constantly getting an elastic stimulus in a short range of motion, right? So we're having loads of deceleration, loads of cuts, accelerations as well, but we're constantly changing direction. We're constantly speeding up and then slowing down really fast. And then we're constantly in high knee positions or short range of motion. That's why most of our knee injuries are happening, in my opinion, because we are overusing a short or mid-range motion. And then if you look at a lot of the football training nowadays, it's creating explosiveness, it's creating power, it's all about speed. And that is also in the gym doing plyos, it's doing elastic work, it's doing hip power, it's doing stuff in a short or mid-range of motion. And so the sport is a stimulus in itself where we're getting all this stimulus, and then people think that we have to do something similar in the gym and that's going to make us better in the sport because it's the same thing. But it's actually not, it's the opposite. If we don't have any variety there and we're just spamming our knees or our ankles or our hips in the same range of motion over and over and over, we are going to cause issues. We're going to cause overuse injuries. When we are doing this kind of stimulus, plyos, of short range of motion, of mid-range of motion, leg presses, leg extensions, when we're just playing football, then we are causing our muscles to shorten, we're causing our connective tissue not to go to its full range of motion, and when that happens, we are putting 2 risks on our body. So one is then having no range. So if we don't have that full range of motion in the knees, say we do get tackled and we get pushed into a range of motion where our knee goes into a flexible position, but we don't have that flexibility, and so an injury occurs. The second thing that I've been talking about is that overuse thing. So there's 2 risks there. And then we can look at after an injury. So one where the injury is somewhat small, and so we can keep playing football, but the injury is there. And so our body starts to compensate, right? Say in our left knee, we have patellar tendon issues. And so our left knee never wants to go into that knee over toe position where that patellar tendon is going. And if it does, it kind of uses the hips to compensate. Your body leans down, you're coming away from that. And so even in the sport, you're becoming more and more imbalanced because your right side of the body can handle that stimulus, and so it's developing with that stimulus. But then when you're pushing into your hips, your left side is then developing more hip strength and more compensations rather than that knee strength. Maybe the ankle starts to get tighter, and so we develop all of these imbalances. So then when we have to go into that position where the left knee does go into that position and it's not strong enough, then it goes. Or our body just starts to get tight and stiff. We start developing injuries elsewhere in the body. The second type of injury is a major injury, right? So something that takes us out of the sport completely. And when this happens, our brain is then wired to always think that's going to be an issue. And so if we have an ACL injury, it's not just about the ACL being strong, but it's about our mind being able to trust that ACL again. And then our training coming back into sport after the knee surgeries and the knee injuries is so poor. It's imbalanced in its own right. We're building hip strength, we're building muscle dominance, we're building acceleration force but no deceleration force. And so this is why we're seeing such poor re-injury rates, right? 50% of people that tear their ACL make it back to the same level of sport. Out of them, another 25 to 50% go on to re-injure in the next 1 to 2 years, either that same leg or the other leg, because of all these imbalances and everything I'm talking about. And so there's really a 25 to 50% success rate of getting the person who has an injury back to the same level of sport as before. And yet if you look at me, I wasn't just 1 injury, I was 2 injury, 3 injury, 4 injury, 5 injury. I was down here, and now I've not only just got back to that initial level that I was before, but I'm actually up here, right? I'm way stronger than I was before my initial injury. Way more protected. And so that is the goal. The third thing in the honorable mention I want to talk about is then recovery, because demand versus ability is one thing, but then the demand versus ability gets affected by how much we can recover, right? Because if we have a certain level of ability when we're fully recovered, but then we're not recovering properly, say we're not sleeping, our nutrition's really bad, when that stimulus then comes into the knee when we're not recovered, that then causes issues. If you have DOMs in your muscles and you go and play, there's a higher likelihood of you getting injured. And so we have to look at nutrition, sleep, recovery, all that kind of stuff, especially in stuff like Sunday League, right? Our Sunday League post-game ritual was to go down the pub, right? Have a couple of beers, have some chips, do no stretching, no good fuel, good nutrition. And this is just causing us issues, it's causing us pain, and it's not good for us. And so these are the 3 main things that we want to look at when thinking about injuries, why they are happening, and how we could potentially decrease our risk of having injuries in the future. So, solutions. What do I believe possible solutions could be? Again, not a medical expert. I'm not solving any medical conditions. Please go talk to a doctor or a physio or anything like that if you need specific medical advice. What I am doing is talking about increasing ability, increasing structural balance, and increasing recovery, so we have a higher chance of being able to avoid injuries. Inside increasing ability, we have to look at a few things, and this I'm going to talk about our 3 main pillars inside Bulletproof Ballers very briefly, and if you want to go deeper on them, there's a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel in which you can. But when we're talking about increasing ability, it's not just increasing some kind of ability, because people get super strong in the RDLs, like I was saying, Bulgarian split squats, leg extensions, leg press. Is that the same as getting ready for sport? I don't believe so. Like, we look at the overuse injuries is actually again, we're going to talk about this in a sec, with structural balance, but it's an imbalance of too much ability in one thing and not enough ability in the other. And so the 3 main pillars are 1, joint dominance. As kids, we are joint dominance. We can jump off stuff that's 2 times our body height and not worry, right? We don't have massive muscles. And so we don't believe that muscles are bad. We believe there's a harmony between muscle and joint. But the joint is really super important, because the muscle produces force, but the joint is what holds us together, the connective tissue inside the knee, tendons and the ligaments, and these can hypertrophy. They can get stronger, they can get thicker, and they can hold us together. Second is then mobility. Again, we look at kids, they can get down into deep squats all day, they can get into different ranges of motion. If we have this mobility, then we have less opportunity to get injured, because say you get pushed into a position, but then your body already knows you can handle it, you're not going to get injured in that. When we go to a full range of motion, and not just go to a full range of motion, and not just get flexible, but actually increase our strength through that flexibility in stuff like ATG split squats for the front of the knee, Jefferson curls for the back of the knee, this is going to make us more bulletproof against injuries, more resilient against injuries. It's proven time and time again. The third is then elastic dominance. I know football is an elastic stimulus in itself, but elastic dominance is super important, especially when coming back from a knee injury where we've lost that elastic dominance. Elastic dominance means more ability to decelerate and rebound that force than it does to accelerate. Because imagine that you put a Ferrari engine with Mini Cooper brakes. Right? You are going to break down. If you get to this top speed by using your hip power, but then you can't slow down with your knees, that is an issue. And so we create elastic dominance. And so increasing ability is the first thing. As we increase our ability, the demand that we place on our body cannot hurt us in the same way. But like I said, that increase of ability does not just need to be an increase in ability in one thing. If you get super strong muscles, but you don't focus on connective tissue, if you don't focus on mobility, if you don't focus on your ankles, your hips, your knees, everything in balance, your toes, then there is going to be issues causing our body and lead to more injuries. Structural balance is a term coined by Charles Poliquin, which pretty much means that there is a certain ratio of mobility, strength, and elasticity in each part of our body that is most beneficial to be able to avoid injury and also produce at our best, right? To perform at our best. And so we believe that we have those numbers after ATG studying thousands of people, after us studying hundreds of people, after Charles Poliquin working with Olympic athletes. And so we believe we have some idea. It's not perfect, it's not a perfect solution, but we have some kind of a solution. And something I want to talk about here. We've obviously talked about how there's elastic stimulus in high knee positions, and so we need to balance that out by going to low knee positions, slower strength. We've talked about acceleration versus deceleration, where we're getting stronger hips than we are knees, so we need to balance that out by getting stronger knees while getting stronger hips at the same time. I also want to talk about leg to leg, right? After a knee surgery or a knee injury, your left quad is going to completely disappear. And so if we have imbalances side to side, that can cause injuries. If we have imbalances hamstrings to quads, that's going to cause injuries. If we have imbalances ankles to knees to hips, that's going to cause injuries. And so we need to have standards for every area which we look at and know, okay, this is going to be the right structural balance. This is what I'm aiming for. This is what I need to bring up in my training. You can look at this in another way. So, for example, I said earlier that the sport is a stimulus in itself. And so that stimulus is then making our body adapt in a certain way. And say you're constantly planting on your right leg and kicking with your left. Constantly doing that. And you do that hundreds of times every week. What kind of imbalance would that cause leg to leg? And we know that if we have imbalances in our planting, like left leg to right leg, then there's more risk of knee ligament tears. And so we do stuff like 2 up, 1 down, depth drops in order to rebalance our legs leg to leg. And so it's not just in the strength and in the mobility. It's not just in the way your body looks. It's also in what the body can handle, especially in a sports situation. But balance is super, super, super important. Third then is recovery. Sleep well. Like, we know that this is like number one, and yet we stay up all night on our laptops watching YouTube. I do it myself sometimes. We scroll. We don't get to bed on time. We stay up late. We wake up early. We don't give ourselves magnesium before we go to bed. We don't wear blue light blockers to block all the blue light. And so our sleep, if it is really bad, even on 1 or 2 nights, that can absolutely jack up our risk of injury. And so we need to constantly sleep well. Second, then, we need to fuel well. We need to decrease ultra-processed foods. And again, there's a difference between ultra-processed and processed in terms of, if I cooked beef, that's a form of processing. And what we're talking about is these ultra processed foods, these donuts, these cakes, these things filled with seed oils, these things filled with stuff that we as the humans are meant to eat. So we want to cut that down and eliminate as many ultra processed foods as possible and eat a more well-rounded diets with meat and fruit and vegetables and nuts. Again, none of this is specific advice for you, but this is how I look at recovery myself. Can we do stuff like Epsom salt baths or saunas? Can we do blood flow? The nutrients that our body needs to be able to heal is in the blood and in the synovial fluid. And so if we give that stimulus in a light way that's not going to break down our tissues, then we can recover quicker. And again, ultimately increase our ability over time in order to handle more stimulus, handle more demand, and therefore decrease our risk of injury. These are my theories on why people are getting injured and what we can start to do to decrease these injuries, even if you've already had some kind of injury. Once you are cleared to be able to strength train, we would love to help you out to be able to increase your ability, increase your recovery potential, increase your structural balance so that you can go into your sport, go into your activities, whatever you want to do, more prepared, with a idea that your body is going to be less likely to be injured. This is what we do. If you would like to do that with us, we have one-on-one coaching down in the description below, or we have a school community in which we have programs, all this different kind of stuff. Appreciate you watching this video, and I really hope it helps.